He's been writing about energy, politics, and innovation for more than 3 decades. He's the author of 6 books, including his latest, A Question of Power, Electricity and the Wealth of Nations. Robert is also the producer of a new 5-part docuseries called Juice, Power, Politics, and the Grid, which is available free on YouTube. You can follow Robert on Substack, which is robertbryce.substack.com. He lives in Austin, Texas with his wife, Lauren, who's right over here. She's a teacher, photographer, master potter, and guest tonight. Thank you. So, Robert's gonna speak now for about 20 minutes. Everything you have in front of you is some of the slides he'll go through, and then we're gonna start our panel discussion. So Robert, thank you so much for coming to Boston and being our guest tonight.
20 minutes, I'm going to hit you with about 25 slides. I'm going to drop a stat bomb on all of you. Get ready for a lot of numbers. Okay, Paul and I talked about the format tonight, and I said, well, I think it's the critical part of understanding net zero and the issues at hand is context. And for many years, I've done a lot of public speaking. I didn't use PowerPoint. But the more I got into understanding the physics and the numbers of the energy and power, it's imperative. It is imperative to understand the numbers and the comparisons with the numbers themselves. So that's the goal of the next 20 minutes. All right. The reality is this net zero madness, these net zero mandates, it's all consumer pain and there is no climate gain. I'm going to give you these 5 points. I won't read this to you, but I'm going to run through them right away here and talk you through why, in fact, there is no energy transition. And instead, what we have seen has been a sustained and very effective propaganda effort. And I use that word very carefully. I don't necessarily like that word, but the difference, as Twain said, between the right word and the wrong word is quite a big difference. It's the difference between the lightning and the lightning bug. And what we have been subjected to systematically over the last 10 years or so, but particularly with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, has been a sustained propaganda effort to convince policymakers and the public that there is an energy transition underway, and there ain't. All right. My late mother was a grammarian, and she always corrected my grammar. God bless her. She believed in me as a journalist before I did. There ain't none. Not my numbers, the numbers. The stat bomb starts now. The Statistical Review of World Energy Data. Not my numbers, the numbers. This is in fact just updated today because the Energy Institute just released the Statistical Review of World Energy for 2025. So these CO2 numbers are the latest that are available. The 6 largest economies in the world. Look at China and India, obviously here in the red and the green. Those 2 countries account for about 2.7 or 2.8 billion people. Unless or until China and India decide to quit burning coal or that they don't like using energy and electricity, this trajectory is not going to change. Note the green bar here. This is the US. The US has reduced its emissions more than any other country in the world by far on an absolute basis. Why is that? Mostly natural gas displacing coal in the power sector. But God bless the Germans. Here they are, that yellow line. They will waste €1 trillion, assuming that they can change the trajectory of global CO2 emissions and therefore global climate. They have a very high opinion of themselves. Look at this slide. Now look at this one. These are the exact same sets of numbers, exact same numbers, the exact same source. The Energy Institute, Statistical Review of World Energy, latest numbers just came out today. So I just updated this slide just a few hours ago. Here's the US again, reduced its emissions more than any other country in the world by far, 1.1 gigatons, 1,100 million tons. But look at what has happened in China and India, an increase of roughly 10 gigatons, 10,000 million tons. There is no energy transition. Where is it in the numbers? Unless or until China and India change this trajectory, there is no energy transition. Or if there is one, tell me where it is and go slowly, because I'm from Oklahoma. I'm a little slow. There is no evidence in the data, no evidence in the numbers to show that there is an energy transition underway. Instead, what we have been seeing is a sustained, very effective, give them credit, media effort to convince the public and policymakers that this thing is real. And what is the goal of all this policy push? It's about money. I don't think it's it's not, well, although, okay, cynicism. I quote Lily Tomlin all the time. No matter how cynical I get, I can't keep up. It's not a cynical view to say that this climatism and the push for alternative energy here in New England and in many parts of the US, Western Europe, around the world, is motivated by money. There's no altruism for the big banks or big business or big law firms or the big NGOs. This is about money, full stop. All right, let's talk about specifics. I'm adamantly pro-nuclear. If you're anti-nuclear and anti-carbon dioxide, you're pro-blackout. I'm anti-blackout, very much so. My wife Lauren and I live in Austin. We were blacked out during Winter Storm Uri for 48 hours. I've been through blackouts. We now have a Generac at our house, by the way. And just briefly as an aside, this is not in my script, but we have a Generac. We put it in last summer. And Lauren and I have been married 39 years this month. Conversation on the Generac went like this. It was $15,000. It's 22 kilowatts. I found a vendor I liked. I said, well, I went to Lauren and said, well, honey, I kind of want to do this. And she said, I don't want to spend $15,000 on that. I said, well, I don't either. So we could go to Europe. We could do all that. I said, I understand that. And then she said, but if we don't get it and there's a blackout, you're going to blame me. So now we have a Generac. Back to the numbers. I'm adamantly pro-nuclear. More than half of all the new nuclear capacity in the world is being built in India and China, but they are building, in fact, in China today, 6 times more coal-fired capacity than they are building nuclear. Not my numbers, the numbers. International Atomic Energy Agency data for the nuclear, Global Energy Monitor for the coal numbers. This 204,000 megawatts, 204 gigawatts of new coal that is under construction in China, not permitted, not talked about, not in blueprint stage, is larger than the entire installed coal fleet of the United States. By the time this coal capacity is finished construction, China will have more coal-fired capacity, about 1.4 terawatts, than the entire installed base of generation of every type of generation in the United States of America. Coal, oil, natural gas, hydro, nuclear, etc. I'll repeat, the coal generation capacity in China will soon equal or surpass the entire size of the US grid. And unless or until that changes, here in New England, the belief of policymakers, oh, we need net zero to fight climate change, it is a widespread delusion. There's no other word for it. These are the emissions, again, updated just today through 2024. The US was 24% of global emissions in 2000. We're now 13%. Meanwhile, China and India have more than doubled on a percentage basis. I see some of these, you, by the way, taking photos of this slide deck. I'm going to give the slide deck to Paul Craney and his team in a PDF, and you're welcome to use it for free, share it, use it as much as you like. Hydrocarbons are here to stay. This is self-explanatory. Again, not my data, the data. Solar and wind, yeah, solar and wind, solar and wind, solar and wind. Yeah. 6% of primary energy in the United States comes from solar and wind. 6%. Aren't they cute? Emissions. Let's look at the emissions data. Energy Information Administration data, not my numbers, the numbers. This is from 2022. These are the latest numbers that were available. Here are the 6 New England states. Here we're in Massachusetts, the most populous state. You account for 1.2% of US emissions. On a global basis, that's 141 million tons total. It's 2.9% of the US and 0.4% of global CO2 emissions. So why is it, and tell me, why is it that you New Englanders believe that you're going to change the trajectory of global climate change when you're 0.4% of the global total. This is the reality. These aren't my numbers, these are the numbers. So what is my bottom line here? You have to be sober, and I'm going to come back to this. You have to be sober about what is realistic, what is cost effective, and what matters. And it is clear to me that the emissions here effectively do not matter in the global scheme of things. Further, the issue now with regard to the grid as a whole, if you step back and think about, well, what is the challenge? Your electricity demand here is not growing. Now, this is no slight on New England, it's just the facts. But this is from 2008, which matters because remember that was the year Barack Obama was elected. It was the year Governor Schwarzenegger in California mandated renewables. And since then, of course, renewables have accelerated in California. But you see this growth obviously in Texas, Florida, Virginia, Louisiana. Texas is a lot of influx of course, people from California. We live in Austin. The number one place from which people are moving to Austin is San Francisco. Gee, I wish they'd go back and take their politics with them. But nevertheless, here are the 6 New England states highlighted. Massachusetts, of the 6 New England states, has seen the biggest decrease in overall electricity sales. It's not easy, but it's easier to change your electricity mix if your demand is growing. It's much harder if it's falling, and more expensive if it's falling. So the reality is that this idea of net zero is hinging on a massive build out of alternative energy. I don't call them renewables, that's a marketing term. I don't call it green, I don't call it clean. Those are marketing terms. It's alternative energy. And it's going to be massively expensive and it is going to require enormous amounts of land. It won't happen, it can't happen, it won't happen because it can't happen. Your rates for power are already among the highest in the United States. This is EIA data, not my numbers, the numbers. You're second only in the continental US to California. How does that make you feel? There's no award for this high price. But again, the New England states stand out here because in Massachusetts now it's 78% more than the US average, nearly twice the average, or twice what the price is in Texas, nearly twice, of course, the US average, which is 16.5 cents. You're at almost 30 cents per kilowatt hour. That is a crushingly expensive price. And what do I care about? What motivates me in a lot of my work? I care about the poor and the middle class. Who do I love? I love the people who have the names on their shirts. The people who wear their name badges. Those are the people I really care about because they are underrepresented in our political class. And expensive energy is the enemy of the poor. And all of this, all of these decarbonization policies, every one of them is regressive. None of it helps the poor and the middle class. None of it. Despite the rhetoric, oh, it's going to lower your bill, it's going to lower your bill. There is no evidence for this happening. These net zero mandates, there was an excellent study that Mass Fiscal and I think Americans for Prosperity commissioned from Always On Energy Research. My friends Isaac Orr and Mitch Rawling did this study last year. The existing solar and wind in New England now is about 4 gigawatts. Their low estimate for the amount of solar, wind, batteries, et cetera, was 97 gigawatts. They said the more realistic number is 225 gigawatts. That's an increase of what, 55x? It's a minimum of 24x increase in renewable capacity in New England, and it's likely twice that. You see, these are cartoonish numbers. You can't get, it's like that old line about the guy asking for directions. You know, he goes up to the farmer and says, well, can anyone tell me how to get there? And the farmer says, well, you can go up this way. No, don't go that way. Says, hey, no, sorry, mister, you can't get there from here. You can't get there from here. It's impossible. This is the punchline from their study, that adding all this alt energy capacity would cost $815 billion. I did the simple math. There are 15.1 million people who live in New England. That's $54,000 for every New Englander. $54,000. So, you know, I came in, we live in Austin, I'm leaving. If I was going to tell you what's your political strategy, you hammer this number, and then you hammer it some more. And then you say, well, even if it's half that, it's still $26,000, $27,000 for every resident. It's $1,000 a year between now and 2050. Who's going to vote for that? Not very many people. And it's clear the polling on this cost data is very effective. The average citizen, average voters do not make climate change a priority, and they will not pay extra for it. What about land use? This is the key issue. It's something I've been tracking now for more than 15 years. All over the world, people care about what happens in their neighborhoods. Everyone, everywhere. Everyone, everywhere cares about what happens in their neighborhoods. And I've seen this over and over and over again. And I've written about this for more than 15 years. So I've revised this. These are in New Hampshire. This is, of course, here in Massachusetts. The wind turbines in Falmouth were taken down because of the noise pollution they were creating. Windham and Grafton, that's in Vermont. In Vermont, the last wind project that was proposed, owned by a guy named Dave Blittersdorf, it was called Dairy Air, which was a Dairyar. It was a one-turbine wind project. It was defeated and refused planning permission, I think, in 2020. Vermont has a 100% clean electricity mandate in place. You can't build large solar, you can't build large wind in Vermont, and yet they have this mandate. This is a picture of the Roseman Bridge in Madison County, Iowa. I've been there. I was in Iowa twice. I travel a lot. It's one of the most famous bridges in America. There's no wind turbine there. But in 2020, the Board of Supervisors in Madison County voted in the citizens voted in a new Board of Supervisors. They passed an ordinance prohibiting new wind turbines. And Mid-American, a subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway, a company headed by a guy named Warren Buffett, who in 2014 said there's no reason to build wind turbines unless you get tax credits. Mid-American sued Madison County to try to intimidate the county into taking a wind project they didn't want. It was a PR blunder of the first order. They later withdrew the lawsuit, and then this is a headline from an article I wrote in Forbes shortly after they withdrew the suit. San Bernardino County, California, the largest county by area in America, more than 2,000 square miles. You cannot build large-scale wind and solar in San Bernardino County, California, a state that has a 100% clean electricity mandate by 2045. Gage County, Nebraska, Norway, yeah. These are the wind rejections. To be clear, I don't like the wind business. In fact, I hate the wind business. I hate those people with a burning passion. And I don't think they like me either, and I'm okay with that. I've seen how they act in rural America, and the way they treat rural Americans has been, in many cases, absolutely despicable. And if the oil and gas industry had acted in rural America the same way the wind industry has done, it would be front page news of the New York Times. But these issues don't get covered in mainstream media outlets because it doesn't fit the narrative. I've written about this for 15 years. The New York Times has never written about what happened in Madison County, never written about the Osage tribe's long-running legal battle with Enel, the longest-running legal battle over wind energy in American history. The New York Times has never written a single word about it. These are the solar rejections. Of course, Northfield is here in Massachusetts. You've got these two projects in Maine. Johnston, Rhode Island, that zoning board rejection was just a few months ago. These are the cumulative numbers, 827 rejections or restrictions of wind and solar, all documented in the Renewable rejection database. I maintain that on my website, robertbryce.com. Why did I do it? Followed the admonition of W. Edwards Deming, the great industrial analyst who said, "In God we trust, all others bring data." Well, here's the data. Irrefutable, all of it cataloged, all of it tabulated. I've entered every one of these by hand. What is happening around the world is the same as the backlash you see here in New England, and you see it from Maine to Hawaii. You see it all around the world. At least 135 rejections of wind and solar since about 2016. We're still working on this with my son Jacob on some of this research, but this is Anbord Planiela, this is in Ireland, this is New Zealand, this is in England, this is in Australia. We were in Australia last week. The backlash across rural Australia is just as fierce as it is here in the United States. Battery rejections, I know this is a hot topic here in Massachusetts as well. I'm from Oklahoma. I mentioned Oologah, Oklahoma, the hometown of Will Rogers. They just rejected a battery project there. This, of course, here is in Massachusetts. This is in England. And these projects here, of course, are in Massachusetts as well. Again, the issue is land use. Energy policy and land use policy are two sides of the same coin. And what we see over and over and over and over and over again is this alternative energy push requires massive amounts of land. And all over the world, local people are saying, we don't want them here. Go take them, put them somewhere else where the sun doesn't shine, the wind doesn't blow. We don't want it here. Finally, just a bit about Wales. And I'm pleased to see my friend Lisa Leno's here. She's been absolutely fierce. And I do mean fierce for a woman who might weigh 105 pounds. I know you're not supposed to guess a woman's weight, but she is an incredible ally. First time we met in person is here tonight. She did amazing work on offshore wind and the problems with offshore wind. She and another friend of mine, Megan Lapp, who I have said has more grit than a sandpaper factory. Together, they've been amazing. And what we've seen under the Trump administration is the rollback, a lot of this offshore wind foolishness. In my view, the only thing dumber than onshore wind is offshore wind. It is clear that massive amounts of these wind projects that are being permitted, or rather were permitted under the Biden administration, which effectively just rubber stamped any of the applications for offshore wind, were put right on top of known North Atlantic right whale habitat. This is indisputable. These are the heat maps for the whales, and the Biden administration was just effectively sold out to the offshore wind business, completely sold out. And the Trump administration has been rolling back some of these. They could do more. I'm not going to complain about that. You know, I think on many of the things that Trump has done, I think, you know, I have a lot of questions, but on the energy front, many of his instincts are right on target. Here are the National Marine Fisheries Service and their assessments of the critical assessments of what wind turbines and wind turbine development mean for whales. I am old enough to remember when environmentalists cared about whales. It was a long time ago. Sierra Club, Natural Resource Defense Council, National Wildlife Federation, sold out, completely sold out to the climate catastrophism and to big wind for offshore wind, and I think it's just flat despicable. So sober up. This is the message. Sober up. You've got to get rid of these net zero mandates. This is not going to be quick, won't be cheap, it won't be easy. But you have now codified in law here in Massachusetts a net zero mandate. And you have to overturn this because the cost is just going to be prohibitive. It can't be done from a land use standpoint. Makes no sense whatsoever. It weakens the grid. There are no reasons to pursue this except for this political ideology around this. So I think obviously these land use conflicts are going to continue. This is obvious that wind projects are hurting and will continue to hurt marine mammal populations. The quick commercial here. Here's my book. This is my latest one. My wife Lauren and I have 3 children. I've written 6 books. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell everyone you know. You don't have to read it, you just have to buy it. And if you buy it on your Kindle, I make a better royalty. So help me out. I'm on Substack. I write on Substack. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok. I'm easy to find on the Google. I'll conclude with this because I'm right at my 20-minute. I'm at 21 minutes.
When was the last time Maura Healey called you to ask her some advice?
Well, we'll get to that in just a minute. I'll just end with this because we're going to a panel discussion. What Fiscal and Americans for Prosperity are doing on this is absolutely critical. I encourage you to get active, stay active, pack a lunch. This isn't going to be easy. It's not going to be quick, won't be cheap. But you have to get motivated. You have to encourage people to join because this is a critical fight. And I wish you great success. Thank you.